Hello everyone, hope you're all keeping well. This is Saheed and I'm glad to welcome you to our Visa Pathfinders channel. Today we shall be discussing the International English Language Testing System, which is called IELTS, and we're looking at the writing module. Generally, IELTS is a test that measures a person's ability to listen, speak, read, and write English language at the level that is necessary for study or migration purposes. It is often used to test the proficiency for non-native English language speakers. This exam is jointly managed by the British Council, the International Development Programme, which is called the IDP Australia, and the Cambridge Assessment English. IELTS is graded on a scale of 1 to 9. So our focus today will be on writing module, like I said. So the IELTS writing test is the module that many students find really most difficult. And this is because in a short space of time, which is 1 hour, you have to write an essay and a graph in an academic module, or a letter in a general writing, in a general training module. IELTS writing test module varies depending on whether you're doing the academic test for study purposes or the general test, the general training test, which is usually for work or general migration. In the IELTS academic test module, you have to describe a graph or a diagram, which is a task 1, or write an essay in your task 2. In the IELTS general training module, you have to write a letter in your task 1, and you write an essay in the task 2. The task 2, which is usually an essay, is actually worth more marks than task 1. In fact, it is worth twice that of task 1. So basically in your task 1, which is a graph or letter, you should be looking to spend 20 minutes, while on the task 2, you're expected to spend 40 minutes. So the minimum you should write for the task 1 is 150 words, while you do 250 words for task 2. Generally, for each task, you have a structure. For the task 1 academic test, you have a structure that includes the introduction. Here, you would have to paraphrase the question using synonyms. After that, you've got the overview, and in the overview, you would write a general overview of the key features and put in a statement. Thirdly is your body paragraph 1, and in that, you would write in details about the features in a logical way, mentioning some specific sentences that are visible. The last one is your body paragraph 2, and in this you would write in details about the features in a logical way, giving more specific sentences about changes that took place with time or location. The structure for task 1, general training. In this, you would have to start with a greeting, which is saying you're greeting someone depending on what kind of test it is. So depending on whether it's a formal or semi-formal or an informal letter. So in this, you would have to do a greeting that says maybe a dear sir or madam, or a dear friend, you mention the friend's name, or whatever, a dear Mr. case may be. Secondly, you need to do an introduction or the purpose of your writing, so which is stating the reason for you writing the letter. Body 1 is the third thing to do, and in this you would write about the first point, with usually the general training would have 3 key questions. So in your body 1, your first question would be answered. Body 2, you would have to write about the second point with details. So you're answering your question number 2. Body number 3, basically you're writing about the third point with details. So the question number 3 will be answered in this. And the 16th to do, which is the ending, so you're giving your thanks, which is kind of say, thank you in advance for your assistance and thanks for doing this or that. So that's all about it. The 7th thing is your sign off, and in this you're writing yours faithfully or yours sincerely. And the last thing is to put your name. So putting your first and last name would just basically suffice for putting on your name as the final part of your letter on the general training task 1. So looking at the task 2, which is the essay generally has got various forms. So the questions actually have got different types That might include the problem solution question. If it's not a problem solution question, so it could be agree, disagree, positive, negative development, discuss both views and give your opinion. It could be an advantage, disadvantage, and give your opinion and stuff like that. So these are the different forms of essays that you might get in your exam. For the task 2 essay, it's also got a structure which basically starts with introduction. In the introduction, you would have a background statement, which is basically talking about the topic. You would have to reward the prompt, and that is the task mainly. And lastly, you would have a thesis statement, which gives your own opinion. Secondly, you would have the part that is called the body 1. So in body 1, you would be discussing the first view topic sentence. So in this, you're looking at talking about the advantages, depending on what the question is, or problems or arguments in favor, and what have you. You would also talk about the first point in this, giving an example and an explanation. Then your second point as well, giving an example and explanation. You go on to your body 2, and in this you're discussing the second view topic sentence. This you're looking at the other way, looking at your disadvantages depending on the question, or the solutions or argument against. So in this as well, you're giving your first point, which gives the example and explanation. Your second point as well with the example and explanation. Finally, you got a conclusion. So in the conclusion, you would have to conclude and summarize your write-up, restate your opinion, and give your final thought. So what are the key things that we need to slot into our writing to achieve a very high band score? Let's go on the screen, guys. Today, we shall be looking by popular demand at the key things that we need to do to get our writing for the IELTS exam spot on. So we're looking at all the things that we need to put in for us to have a very superb outing, which are mainly task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range. So when you're talking about the task achievement, so we are talking about the information and ideas, whereas the coherence and cohesion is focused on the structure and organization, while the lexical resource is focused on the vocab, that's the vocabulary, and grammatical range, mainly talking about your grammar. So looking at this, what we want to focus on for task achievement, for us to have a very great score or a great band score. So we're looking at all the requirements for the task. We need to nail it. So all the questions that are asked, all the task requested, so we fully and appropriately satisfy all the requirements. There is, very rare lapses in our content. Whereas, talking about the task 1 we're talking about now. So whereas in task 2, it's mainly about the task response, and the prompt is usually about appropriately addressing what exactly you've been asked to do. So you have addressed the question properly and you explored everything in depth. So a clear and fully developed position is presented, which is, which kind of directly answers all the questions that you asked. And also the ideas are relevant and also fully extended, and you have all these ideas well supported. Whereas for the coherence and cohesion, which is basically focused on the structure and organization, so that is looking at how the message that you're putting forward flows effortlessly, and also the how you're able to use everything that you're writing, in such a way that you very rarely attract attention. And paragraphing is excellent. Whereas for the lexical resource, it's fully looking at your full flexibility and how precise you are within the scope of the task that you're given to work on. And also a wide range of vocab that you're using, and you're using them very appropriately and accurately. and also using them in a very, with sophisticated control of lexical features of what you put in there. Very minor error expected anyway. So for the grammar, so you're able to use a wide range of grammar flexibly with very good control. Your punctuations are very good, and you have minor errors, in what you're communicating. So for task one, that's everything written up here, and task two, the main difference is task one is the task achievement, and task two is your response. So looking at trying to expatiate on the task achievement, so or the response. So basically, you need to assess how it is. You can assess yourself even before you're being assessed to look at how appropriately or accurately or relevantly the responses that you fulfill the requirements set out in the task. And also all the bullet points are covered clearly and comprehensible purpose and tone is used in the write-up. And also you've got the appropriate format. And don't forget the fact that if you're also told to do 150 or 250 words in task one or two, you're not doing less than that. For coherence and cohesion, so mainly the coherence means a linking of the ideas through logical sequencing, while the cohesion is talking about the variety of cohesion devices that are used to make clear relationships between ideas such as pronouns, conjunctions, and all that. So it assesses the overall clarity and the fluency of the message and your ability to be able to use linking words and how the essay is well organized with links, the information idea, and the language that you put in together, as well as your sequential information and logical idea arrangement. Of course, you need to manage your paragraphing well. It is good for you to have a particular style of paragraphing. So for lexical resource, there are quite a number of things that you need to follow. And if you have all these looked, at yourself, that would be good. So because things such as say phrasal verbs, which are idiomatic phrases that consist of verb and another element, typically we're looking at an adverb or a preposition. Sometimes a combination of both anyway. So you would have examples such as break up, break down, set up, set turn down, turn up, and do away with, put off, put put down, and stuff like that. Break up, break down. So these are things that form your phrasal verbs. Whereas apart from that, you got idiomatic expressions, which are an idiom basically is just an expression of word. It's an expression word rather, or a phrase that has a figurative meaning conventionally understood by native speakers. And these are, when you have your write-up being done, so you have things such as, say, due to the fact that, as a matter of fact, and things like that. So you put in there. So uncommon words and advanced language. So you might want to take a look at your vocabulary for IELTS. So in that you would be able to get a lot of advanced language. So rather than you say things like trees, you're using a word like nature. So rather than you say environment in your write-up, you're saying something like neighborhood. So also pretty much important is your spelling. So you should have very good spellings. Every word, every statement, you need to spell check to be sure that they're really absolutely correct. So for grammatical range, so usually we're talking about the punctuation, so which is a set of symbols used to separate and clarify the meaning of sentences and reading elements. So these are usually your full stops and commas. Simple short sentences are pretty much important, so which are also referred to as clause sentences. They usually would have one main or independent clause and no dependent clause. So examples, statements like Andy and John play tennis every evening. The music is too loud for my ears and stuff like that. So those are kind of simple short sentences. Whereas for compound sentences, they've got the at least two independent clauses that can be combined with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. So examples include things like they studied the Harvard rules for many hours, but they realized there was still much to learn. So these are words such as but, and, then, as you can see in the examples here. For complex sentences, they contain at least one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. So the dependent clauses can refer to subjects such as who, which, the sequence or time such as since, while, or clausal elements such as because, if, of that independent clause. So you can see examples such as, say, although she completed a literature review, she still needed to work on her methods section. So although, because, if, and things like that, since, while. So those are kind of examples of complex sentences. So also you want to look out for present, past participle in your write-up. As you can see, the definition for all those examples, such as say give, gave, given, or some don't even change at all, like ought. So you want to look at those to be sure that they all included in your write-up. Relative clause is another important thing that you need to do because this usually connect ideas by using pronouns that relate to something previously mentioned and allows that allows the writer to combine two independent clauses into one sentence. So an example would include anything like where, when, which, whose, who, and stuff like that. So by the time you have all of this mentioned in your write-up, you already covered relative clauses, and you don't need to bother about that. So when you have this there, you all covered words like where, when, um, which, whose, who, and what have you. So modal verbs, these are actually auxiliary verbs that expresses the necessity of or the likelihood or the possibility of something happening. So it is usually used to refer to possible but uncertain actions in the future. So, and the examples of this can be things like can, could, may, might, would, shall, appears, seems. So you can see things like it seems, it appears, it ought to be, it might, it may, and they may, they could, and stuff like that. So the moment you have all those in your write-up, then you've got the modal verbs covered. So also the last thing is the infinitive words, so which are things that are usually ending with the ing. So those are kind of continuous sentences. So you need to have that included. So the moment you're able to have all of this in your write-up, task one, task two, you should be kind of confident that you're inching ever closer to your band 9.0, which is where you want to be to have the maximum score for the exam for writing. You would have ended up covering all the areas that would be looked into in eventually arriving at the band scoring, which are the lexical structure, the coherence, cohesion, grammatical range, and the lexical structure. So thank you very much. I have to stop here. If you do have any comments or questions or anything that you want to contribute to this video, feedback you have, just send it to us on Visa Pathfinders at gmail.com. So would be more than happy to respond to all your feedbacks and messages. If you do want personalized um, feedbacks, you can also feel free to email our Visa Pathfinders at gmail.com. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel, click on the update button so that you can have all the information come through the new videos, they come through to your screen straight as we upload them. Thank you.